By 1870, Europe felt like a really tense family dinner. Prussia, having recently bullied Austria into submission in a swift 7-week argument, was now the head of the North German Confederation. This made it the cool older sibling everyone was suddenly paying attention to. Across the table sat France, led by Napoleon III, nephew of the other Napoleon, who was desperately trying to live up to the family name. He saw this newly buff Prussia and felt his own imperial prestige shrinking. It's a classic case of geopolitical insecurity. All you need for a continent-spanning war, apparently, is one nation feeling good about itself and another feeling less so. Everything was perfectly balanced for a massive, bloody conflict. All it needed was a delightfully stupid reason to kick off. And history, as always, was happy to provide one.
The delightfully stupid reason arrived in the form of a vacant throne in Spain, because nothing says stability like a power vacuum in 19th century Europe. The Spanish offered the crown to a German prince, Leopold of Hohenzollern. This is the historical equivalent of your neighbor asking your cousin to be their new homeowners association president. It shouldn't be a big deal, but France completely lost its mind. A German on the Spanish throne felt like being boxed in. They threw a diplomatic tantrum, and to everyone's surprise, the German prince actually withdrew his candidacy. Crisis averted, right? Everyone can go home. Oh, you sweet summer child. The French foreign minister, the Duc de Gramont, decided to push his luck. He wasn't content with the win. He wanted a groveling apology and a permanent promise that no Hohenzollern would ever sit on the Spanish throne. This is called snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Enter Otto von Bismarck, Prussia's minister-president, a man who played chess while everyone else was playing checkers with plastic pieces they'd probably swallow. He received a telegram from his king, Wilhelm I, describing the polite but firm refusal he gave the French ambassador at the spa town of Ems. The original telegram was boringly diplomatic, but Bismarck, seeing his chance, got out his red pen. He didn't lie, he just edited for brevity. He condensed it until it sounded like the king had brutally insulted the French ambassador and the ambassador had rudely accosted the king. He then released this spicy little summary to the press on Bastille Day, July 14th, just to be extra. The Ems dispatch went viral. Paris erupted in fury. Berlin erupted in patriotic fervor. Bismarck had turned a diplomatic non-event into a national insult for both sides. Genius. Horrifying, but genius. France declared war on July 19, 1870, with cries of "Berlin!" The national mood was ecstatic. They had the mitrailleuse, an early crank-operated machine gun that they thought was a secret superweapon. Spoiler, it wasn't. It was clumsy and often misused as artillery. Meanwhile, Prussia had a secret weapon that actually worked, the General Staff. This was a dedicated body of professional officers led by the brilliant Helmuth von Moltke the Elder, who did nothing but plan for wars. They had timetables, they had railway logistics calculated to the minute. They knew exactly how many sausages were needed for a platoon in Bavaria on day 3 of mobilization. The French mobilization was, by contrast, a chaotic mess. Men arrived at depots to find no weapons. Weapons arrived at depots with no men. It was a logistical nightmare orchestrated by people who thought lanor, vigorous spirit, could substitute for a train schedule. The actual war was less of a contest and more of a demonstration of ruthless efficiency. The German armies, a coalition of Prussians, Bavarians, and others, moved like a well-oiled machine. They were armed with Krupp steel breech-loading cannons that outranged France's bronze muzzle-loaders. This meant German artillery could sit comfortably out of range and just dismantle French positions. It was target practice with strategic consequences. The decisive moment came at the Battle of Sedan on September 1st. Moltke, using his superior numbers and planning, managed to encircle the entire French army of Chans. 100,000 French soldiers, including Emperor Napoleon III himself, were trapped. Realizing the situation was hopeless and being in considerable pain from bladder stones, Napoleon III surrendered. He sent a note to the Prussian king saying, "My brother, as I could not die at the head of my troops, I have no choice but to surrender my sword to you." The Second French Empire died in that valley. News of the emperor's capture reached Paris, and the city did what it does best, declared a republic. Hooray for the Third Republic! Unfortunately, this new government inherited a war it couldn't win, and the massive German army that was now marching directly on Paris. By September 19th, the city was completely besieged. The Germans decided to simply wait and starve them out. What followed was one of history's most surreal sieges. Parisians, known for their culinary tastes, were soon eating cats, dogs, and rats. The zoo animals were next. Restaurants began serving elephant consommé and roasted camel. For communication, they used hot air balloons to float messages over enemy lines, a method that was about as reliable as hoping the wind blows in the right direction. It was a strange, desperate, and ultimately doomed 4-month-long struggle against starvation and Prussian artillery. While Paris was slowly starving and freezing, Bismarck was preparing his final act. He needed to formally unite Germany. What better place to do it than in the enemy's most treasured palace? On January 18, 1871, in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, the very symbol of French power and prestige, the German princes gathered. They were there to proclaim the Prussian king, Wilhelm I, as German emperor, or Kaiser. It was the single greatest act of political trolling in modern history. Imagine winning the World Cup and then holding the trophy ceremony in the locker room of the team you just defeated. It was a calculated humiliation designed to be unforgettable. And it was. This event didn't just create a new, powerful German empire in the center of Europe, it planted a seed of bitter resentment in France that would bloom spectacularly about 43 years later. Paris finally surrendered at the end of January. The subsequent Treaty of Frankfurt was brutal. France had to pay a war indemnity of 5 billion gold francs, a staggering sum at the time. To ensure payment, German troops would occupy parts of northern France. But the most painful cut was the annexation of Alsace and most of Lorraine. These two border regions with mixed German and French heritage were absorbed into the new German Empire. For Germany, it was a strategic gain and a symbol of their victory. For France, it was an open wound, a constant reminder of their defeat and humiliation. School children in France would look at maps with a black veil covering the lost provinces. The desire for revenge, or revanchism, became a central part of French national identity, setting the stage for the next, even more catastrophic European family squabble. So, a squabble over a Spanish job opening, expertly manipulated by a political mastermind, created a unified Germany, shattered France, and basically set a 40-year timer for World War I. Humans have always been great at this. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!